opposition party has chosen the country's former president, John Dramani Mahama, as its flag bearer come 2024. Cyclone Mocha has lashed the coast of Bangladesh and Myanmar, killing at least 3 people in its wake. Southern African country Mozambique is battling one of its worst cholera outbreaks in more than 20 years. Good afternoon, our dear viewers. Welcome to the 1 p.m. news edition with Hazel Ogoigwe, coming to you live and direct from Golfe TV Africa here in the city of Cotonou. Now to the news in detail, starting from the local scene. In Benin, weapons were found in the belongings of students at the University of Abomey-Calavi on Friday, the 12th of March 2023, during an operation to evict students from the BIDB building. Now, this eviction operation wasn't welcomed by the students. More information in the following report.
The day after the commemoration of 11th May 2023, a date dedicated to the memory of Bob Marley, the Open University and Social Work Center Abomey-Calavi launched an operation to evict students from the BIDB building at the University of Abomey-Calavi.
Cette situation-là, que je suis sûr vous avez déjà filmé.
I am sure that this situation has already been recorded and it has already been viewed, that the luggages of the students has been thrown out and also the students has been asked to move out, according to the authorities. I know no students illegally lodge in the building and the students assault their fellow students, disturbing the quiet and the peace of their fellow students. I believe that as an authority, there's an automaton Sankara situation that I used to brandish everywhere. As an authority, you have to be at the high level, which allows you to see very far. But as a leader, you have to be on alert at all times to know what is going on. Yes, the authorities has to know what is going on. But what is the suitable action that has been taken not to create another problem? I am here, just like you, to see that my fellow students has been asked to leave. Their doors broken. They were not brutalized. They were not violated. But where will my fellow students stay? As leaders, did they bother to find even a shelter for them? I would like that a census be carried out to know the students and non-students in this building. That has not been done before. An uncompleted residency inhabited by a group of students. On the campus, they denounced the action carried out by the officers of the police station of Abomey-Calavi on the instruction of the rector. It should be noted that during the eviction operation, weapons were found in the belongings of the resident students.
Over to the news in brief. Italy's Interior Minister Matteo Piantedosi praised Tunisia's efforts against irregular migration. Now, the comment by the Italian minister follows Monday's visit to the North African country. The Italian official met with his counterpart and also had a meeting with the Tunisian president, Kais Saied. Now, back to the local scene. The primary school educational system in Francophone Africa is similar to what is obtainable in France. This commentary gives you a deeper outlook into the primary educational system in Benin Republic.
The educational system in Francophone Africa is similar to the educational system of France. Unlike the Anglophone educational system that moves from kindergarten to pre-nursery to nursery school in some educational institutions, in Francophone Africa, the first class a child is admitted into is called maternelle, known as nursery school in Anglophone countries. The children in maternelle are between the ages of 2 to 4 years old. From maternelle, the children graduate into primary school. In Benin Republic and other Francophone countries, primary school is compulsory for a period of 6 years. At the end of the 6 years, they write an examination called CEP, meaning Certification of Primary Education, and they get a certificate called Primary School Certificate. In French, it is Certificat d'études premières. In Anglophone countries, this certificate is called School Leaving Certificate. The minimum age required of a pupil to qualify for the Certificate of Primary Education, CEP, is 9 years. And unlike some Anglophone countries that students can write examinations in an earlier class, in Benin Republic, this is not obtainable. A child must follow the due process and write the exam in the 6th grade. The primary school system commences with CI, known as Primary 1, CP, known as Primary 2, CI1, known as Primary 3, CI2, known as Primary 4, CM1, known as Primary 5, and CM2, known as Primary 6. The pupil has to get to CM2, equivalent to Primary 6, before he qualifies to write the CEP examination. When the student succeeds, he moves into secondary school. In Benin Republic, students cannot be promoted. They must finish the 6 years in primary school. The Certificate of Primary Education examination is over 20 and the cutoff mark is 10. The examination is held in the month of June every year. The CEP examination happens simultaneously in all the parts of Benin Republic in different examination centers. If a pupil fails the examination, the pupil has to retake the examination and repeat the class.
Away from that, crossing over to the news in brief. A Tunisian court on Monday, the 15th of May, reportedly sentenced one of the main opponents of the Tunisian president to 1 year in prison on terrorism-related charges. Now, the leader of the Islamist-inspired party, Ennahda, had appeared in court and at the end of February on the terror-related charges. However, according to the coalition, which includes his party, the 81-year-old later refused to appear again before the criminal division, considering that the case was fabricated and has no basis in reality and law. Crossing over to the fire incident that happened last Friday, a fire ravaged Zongo Market in Parakou in the early hours of Friday, 4th of May 2023. Several shops were consumed by the fire. Witnesses narrate their ordeal in the following extract.
It was here, and I saw how the fire outbreak occurred. It was the market watchman that alerted us, and I went to the house to tell my dad that the market is on fire. My dad does not have the firefighter's number, so he asked me. I told him to dial 118. He dialed the number, but there was no response. No one picked the call. They eventually came after some time. The firefighters did not come in time because the fire had already spread throughout the market, destroying shops and goods inside the market. The firefighters did the little they could do, but did not come in time, so the fire had already consumed a lot of shops.
Le feu n'a pas... Bon, on n'a pas pu maîtriser le feu. Attends.
En général, les jeunes et les jeunes filles.
Generally, the youth, both male and female, helped salvage the fire outbreak because there were a lot of market women when the fire outbreak occurred that were not in the market. Thanks to the help of the youth, both male and female, we were able to bring out loads, but there were some loads that could not be brought out because the owners could not recall where they kept their goods. There were also youths that were in the market just to steal. That was their major objective, to steal goods of people. The firefighters eventually came, but they came late. All we can say is that thanks to the help of the youth and also the population, we're able to salvage the situation.
Nous avons pu déclencher la situation.
Still on the fire incident in Zongo Market in Parakou, several shops were, of course, gutted into ashes. The mayor of Parakou had this to say.
Parce qu'on ne peut pas prévoir ce qui est arrivé là aujourd'hui. On ne peut pas le prévoir. Même dans des marchés modernes, il y a souvent des incendies. Donc,
we cannot predict what happened here today. Even in modern markets, there are often fire outbreaks. But you would observe that the market was revamped because the market was more crowded than this. There were some parts of the market free enough to allow free circulation of goods and people. This is what may have facilitated the quenching of the fire. We will continue taking the necessary actions to salvage situations like this. Also, everyone needs to calm down because we need to thank God that when things like this happened, there were no casualties. There were only cases of burning down of goods and shops. What we must do now is tinker on the situation and know what to do thereafter.
D'abord, il faut remercier le Seigneur. Maintenant, pour le reste, qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire? Nous allons nous asseoir à tête reposée et voir ce qu'il y a lieu de faire.
More than 18,000 people living mainly on islands in the Niger River in Tillabéri region, western Niger, have started returning to their homes after fleeing recently violent, partly linked to clashes between communities, learned on Monday from official sources. Now, as a prelude to this return, the armed forces have been deployed in the island to guarantee security, he assured. Now, the victims of the fire incident cry out to the government, back to the local scene. They cry out to the government authorities to come to their rescue and help them salvage this very dire situation.
I was at the house when they called me to tell me about the fire. I came here and cried because I could not salvage any of my goods. God should save us. The government should help us. This is what happens to us in Zongo markets in Parakou. There are some that their shops burnt to ashes completely. We were able to save some of our goods, but nothing of importance. And our prayer is that the government should do what they can do for us to remove us from problem. They should come to our rescue.
C'est ça, on peut dire au gouvernement de se lever, venir dans notre secours. Regardez ce que...
Look at what is happening. President Talon would pay us for all our goods that burnt to ashes. The firefighters did not come. It was just one that came. Everything is burnt. I do not even want to talk much. He will pay for everything.
Quand, au moment où les pompiers sont arrivés, c'est de là, nous, on a...
When the firefighters arrived, that is when we followed the lorries to help them drag the water hose into the market. At that time, I did not pay attention to my shop because I have 2 shops in the market. By the time I went to my shop, I could not do anything. Everything was burnt to ashes. There were many shops that were burnt to ashes. I cannot say the number of shops that burnt down, but it was a lot of shops that were actually razed down thanks to the fire outbreak.
Les gens sont encore dans le marché, ils n'ont même pas compté combien de boutiques il y a.
Crossing over to the news in breath. Recorded executions reached 883 last year, 2022, the highest level since 2017, according to an Amnesty International report published on Tuesday that decry the Middle East and North Africa in particular. Now, the 2022 figure for 20 countries known to have executed people is a 53% increase on the previous 12 months, the Global Rights Monitor stated. On the African scene, Ghana's largest opposition party has chosen the country's former president, John Dramani Mahama, as its flag bearer for the 2024 presidential election. Now, delegates of the National Democratic Congress, NDC, voted in primaries over the weekend to choose a candidate for both the presidential and parliamentary polls.
Ghana's former president, John Mahama, casting his vote in his party's election primaries on Saturday. And the country's largest opposition party, the National Democratic Congress, has overwhelmingly chosen him as its flag bearer for the 2024 presidential election.
So flag bearer is moving to take for...
I believe that if NDC can power, most of the things which Ghanaians we want, NDC can come and do it for us. For instance, taking care of our children, taking care of. But the other side give us a promise, which we look at it with is that they're able not to do those promises. So I know that if NDC come power, by all means, they will turn to us, they will look those promises back and say they'll do it for us.
Mahama was tipped by most political analysts to win the primary based on his experience and influence in the opposition party. They say he's likely to capitalize on the economic crisis facing the country in his presidential campaign.
I believe in John Dramani Mahama. He has been a president before, he has been a vice president before, and he's a communicator too. So there is no way the sitting president can do something for us. We've given him 8 years now. There's nothing we are seeing now. But with John Dramani Mahama, he can turn things around for us. And that's why we believe in him. That's why we are here to vote for him.
The primaries come as Ghana holds talks with the International Monetary Fund over a $3 billion bailout to help it overcome the economic crisis, and as it faces a growing jihadist threat from neighboring Burkina Faso.
Still on the African team, crossing to the news in brief. The unrest in Ziguinchor, a town in southern Senegal, came 1 day before the expected start of Sonko's rape trial in the country's capital, Dakar. Now, Sonko was charged based on a woman's accusations that he assaulted her when she worked at a massaging salon. If convicted, Sonko faces up to 10 years in prison and will be barred from running for presidency. According to local authorities, a police armored vehicle struck and killed the officer as he was reversing. The government offered condolences to the officer's families, calling his death a tragic accident. On to Mozambique. Southern African country Mozambique is battling one of its worst cholera outbreaks in more than 20 years. In the aftermath of the cyclone Freddy, which first made landfall in late February, the number of cases grew exponentially to over 27,000 across the country's 11 provinces. Now, cholera is a dire disease that is usually spread through contaminated water and is especially dangerous to pregnant women.
Cidália João gave birth just days after Cyclone Freddy made landfall in Mozambique. Cidália's home village in Quilimane barely recovered from the storm when cholera took hold.
Cholera has killed many in this village. We would like the government to help us. We lack clean water and many things. Cholera killed many, and the cyclone damaged many things. Many people lost everything they had.
The country was in the midst of a cholera outbreak which exploded after Freddy hit. Crumbling water infrastructure was wiped out and swept into rivers, along with raw sewage from poor sanitation.
Quilimane is a low-lying city. It's a swamp, so the water tables are very high. So, and sewage and water were all, mixed. So that also brought a challenge in terms of trying to combat cholera, and people were fetching water from these contaminated water sources.
Many hospitals and clinics were also damaged, making it difficult to treat the sick. This emergency response hospital, set up by the World Health Organization, Doctors Without Borders, and the United Nations, was treating over 400 fresh cases a day. The things are now under control.
The bed was not enough because the number was very, very, very high. This is a case of success. We have below 20 cases in last two weeks. It means in 1 month from the out control of cholera outbreak, it became under control. It's not easy. I was working more than 18 hours per day.
Mass vaccination drives and community outreach programs have played a part in stemming new infections.
We see a theatre performance made by Group Teatros Retratistas, which is one of our partners here in Quilimane. It's not only to bring the vaccines, but also work with the community through different community platforms to create awareness and create demand for the vaccination.
Elsewhere in Mozambique, it still remains bleak as healthcare workers battle the worst outbreak in 20 years. More investment is needed to improve water and sanitation systems to rid the country of cholera entirely. Until then, millions of Mozambicans remain at risk when the rains return. Julie Shara, CGTN, Kilimani, Zambezi Province, Mozambique.
Gunmen have attacked 2 villages in Plateau State and killed no fewer than 20 people. Now, the killings was guided according Monday night around 9 p.m. The affected villages were Kubwat and Fungazia in Mungu, Mangu local government area of the state. Now, a resident of the Fungazia community who witnessed the attacks, John Yakubu, confirmed the attacks to the Punch on just on Tuesday. Now, Yakubu said that in Fungazia community alone, the gunmen killed 15 people, including the wife of his young brother and her children, while a total of 29 corpses had been recovered. On to Somalia. Around 200,000 people have been displaced due to flash floodings in central Somalia as the Shabelle River bursted banks and submerged roads. Information in the following report.
Around 200,000 people have been displaced due to flash flooding in central Somalia as the Shabelle River burst its banks and submerged roads. Residents of Beledweyne town in Hiran region were forced out of their homes as heavy rains caused water levels to rise sharply. Sitting in a makeshift tent, Fatun Ali said she and her 8 children fled their home in the middle of the night when the water hit the town 4 days ago. The region's Deputy Governor Ali Usman Hussein said the number of people displaced could still rise, adding that they are doing all they can to help those who are affected. As families collect water, a water point in the camp, residents of the town described how they were relieved to have escaped with their lives. Many of them said they could only take the children.
Whenever the river breaks the banks, we flee. It's the 5th time we've fled and come here as an internally displaced people. They want food, as there's no one who takes and brings any food with their family here. Some 200,000 people are now displaced due to the Shabelle River flash floods in Beledweyne town, and the number may increase any time. It's a preliminary figure for now. It's a divine calamity. It was an unexpected disaster. We're satisfied with Allah's decree on us. However, we're doing all that we can to help those who are affected.
All their belongings were left behind. Officials say only 3 people died in the flooding. The disaster comes on the heels of a record drought that has left millions of Somalis on the brink of famine, with the troubled nation also battling an Islamic insurgency for decades. Experts say extreme weather events like this one are happening with increased frequency and intensity due to climate change in Africa, which contributes the list to global warming and is bearing the brunt of it.
You're still tuned into the 1 p.m. news on Golfe TV Africa with Hazel Ogoigbe, and this is the African Newspaper Review. Now let's get started with the pages of the Punch Nigeria. Now this story is a story that is quite worrisome, and it's talking about pay rise. Resident doctors begin warning strike on Wednesday. In Nigeria, if the doctors go on strike, you can be rest assured that the health sector is literally going to be on standstill. The amount of lives lost will increase because the doctors are not there to supervise patients. And of course, they are definitely striking for a just cause. Now, this story says the United States announces visa ban on Nigeria poll riggers and others. Now let's talk about this visa ban, and let's also talk about the just concluded Nigerian elections. Now we have some parties and some people of the opinion that the election was actually free and fair. But then we all have observers that were there to watch the procedure. And of course, various observers testified that the election was not even near being free and fair. And right now, the United States is announcing a ban on Nigerian poll riggers. If you know you're curious to know the poll riggers, then stay tuned to Golfe TV Africa. Will definitely keep you informed. Now, let's now talk about the federal government of Nigeria. It says the federal government of Nigeria spent 13 trillion on subsidy and sets removal guidelines. If subsidy of fuel is removed, then you can be rest assured that the amount Nigeria sells petrol would increase. And once there's an increase in the price of petrol in Nigeria, be rest assured that the price of petrol in Benin Republic would surely skyrocket. Now let's talk about the inauguration of the president-elect Tinubu, APC's presidential candidate. And it says military and IG-1 troublemakers as court hears anti-handover cases. The inauguration is very close, and people are saying that this inauguration should not take place. If you're curious, stay tuned as the story unfolds. And this one just talks about gridlock commuters growing on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. If you know Nigeria very well, you know that Lagos-Ibadan Expressway happens to be one of the busiest expressways that is actually in Nigeria. Now let's move quickly to the front page, Liberia. Let's see the top stories that are trending in Liberia today. Okay, I can see a story talking about the gold diamond. Let's read that. And the story says, Liberia Gold and Diamond Broker Association's president, Fala Kamara, accuses Ministry of Mines and Energy of conspiring with others to take away 50.3 carat diamond from 75-year-old rightful owner, but ministry denies. Who owns the diamond? Of course, that is a rhetorical question that cannot be answered. For more of that story, you can check the pages of the front page, Liberia. And let's quickly move to Cameroon. Let's see the stories that are making the rounds in Cameroon today. Okay, now let's talk about xenophobia on the pages of, and it says, xenophobia comments against non-Southwestern indigenous, shameful and unacceptable. If you know you're curious about the xenophobic comments, you could check the pages of the Guardian Post Cameroon. Still on the Guardian Post, it talks about Manu women in US raised nearly 30 million francs efforts to support education of 1,000 girls home. And when you educate the girl child, you definitely educate your society, because to me, in my opinion, I believe the development of every society is hinged on the shoulder of the girl child. Now, the story says, at launch of National Day in Tuba, Youth Affairs Minister urges population to work for peace. And if you know you're curious about that story, you could check the pages of the Guardian Post Cameroon. I'm going to be going away from the Guardian Post Cameroon. I'm crossing over to my favorite dailies for the day. And that is the front page of the Citizen Tanzania. Let's see the stories that are making the round on Tanzania today. Okay, let's get cracking. This is talking about dual citizenship. Dual citizenship, what Tanzania's long-standing position means. And this story says, counting losses across the board as traders in Kariakoo, Tanzania's largest and busiest shopping district, close their shops in protest at unfair charges and constant harassment. That is something that needs to definitely be looked into. Now, this story says Taifa Group in partnership to generate 180 megawatts in Zanzibar. And dear viewers, with that, I'll be concluding today's edition of the African Newspaper Review and also the 1 p.m. news on Golfe TV Africa with Hazel Ogwegbe. Join me by 6 p.m. for Vocal Points. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your day.